Fiancée's stepmom didn't tell us about her dad's death and funeral. Now she's left grieving in confusion and isolation. So I proposed to my fiancée back in March. Her dad was the only person I talked to beforehand. I asked for his blessing and he was super kind about it. I only met him a couple times before that, but we had a good conversation and I could tell he really loved her. The thing is, I only met his wife or stepmom once, that same day. It was brief and polite, but that's it. Everything else about our engagement planning and updates was through her dad. Her dad has another kid with the stepmom, a teenage son, 17. My fiancée always kind of kept some distance from that part of her dad's life. It wasn't like she hated them or anything, just they weren't close. Her dad would check in, sometimes visit her on his own, but it always kind of felt like he had two separate families. I never really thought too hard about it. It just was what it was. Then in April, while we were starting to figure out the engagement party and save the dates and all that, he passed away. We didn't even know. We didn't hear anything from anyone. No call, no text, not even a weird silence. Nothing. We only found out this week because one of her cousins posted something online about missing him after the funeral and my fiancée texted them like, "What do you mean, the funeral?" And they were like, "Everyone was surprised you didn't show." She just shut down. I think she's still in shock. Her dad is gone. She didn't get to say goodbye. She didn't even get told he was dead. The funeral already happened. She missed it. And no one told her. Not her stepmom, not even her own brother, not anyone. And what makes it worse is, now that she's tried to reach out to people, cousins, her aunt, even her dad's friend, she keeps getting these weird half-responses that make her feel like she should have known or been there, like they're judging her for not showing up, when nobody invited her in the first place. She keeps asking me if she did something wrong. She's wondering if her dad was mad at her. I do think he was happy for us, but now I don't even know what's true anymore. I guess I just don't understand how something like this happens. I know grief makes people act strange and there might be stuff we don't know. I don't want to assume the worst about her stepmom. Maybe she was overwhelmed, or didn't have our contact info, though I feel like she must have had some way to reach out. But I also don't want to make excuses for someone who let my fiancée find out her dad died a month later from a Facebook post. It's starting to feel uncomfortably close to full-on evil stepmom territory, and I hate even thinking that, but this just feels so cold. She's devastated and I don't know what I'm supposed to say or do. I can't fix it. She just keeps saying she can't believe she wasn't there. That she wasn't even given the chance. And I'm angry too, but mostly I just feel helpless. And sad for her. I guess what I'm really asking is, how do I help my fiancée grieve someone she didn't even get the chance to say goodbye to? She keeps wondering if her dad was upset with her, or if she missed some sign, and now the way her family's reacting is only making her feel worse. I want to support her without making her feel like she has to perform grief on anyone else's timeline, or carry blame for something that was never her fault. Update 1. I found where her dad is buried and got contact info for who I think is her half-brother. When I showed her the profile to confirm, she shut down and panicked, but it did confirm for me that it's definitely him. She doesn't want to reach out right now, but I might. Update 2. We finally found out where her dad was buried, and I managed to get in touch with her half-brother. When I showed her who I thought it was, she panicked and did not want anything to do with it. She still does not know I went ahead and talked to him. To be honest, I expected lies or deflection, but what I got was more frustrating. He was not defensive, just cryptic. He said he knows exactly why her side of the family cut her off and that she knows too. He would not tell me what it was and just kept saying I should ask her because I would not believe him anyway. Then he added, sarcastically, that if she is even capable of telling me the truth, I would already know. He did say he had tried calling and texting her after their dad passed, but she has him blocked on everything. He also said he tried to make sure she was included, but she made it clear a long time ago that she wanted nothing to do with him. He knows she has always hated him just for existing. He ended the conversation by saying he was calling her bluff. That she does not really want anything to do with her dad's side of the family. He even asked, did she ever say she was inviting any of them to the wedding? That part stung a little. I will not pretend to know the full story, but I am starting to feel like this is not a case of one person being awful. It feels more like years of silence and resentment that turned into something cruel. We did get some clarity on the legal side. There probably will not be a fight with the stepmom. The brother told me everything that is needed. We are working with a lawyer, but it will take time. The executor has up to 2 years before probate has to start. Even then, anything she may be entitled to would be split evenly with him, and only applies to accounts that were solely in her father's name. We are not expecting anything substantial, but she deserves to know she was not forgotten. Since real closure is out of reach, we are creating our own. Someone suggested planting a memorial tree. We love that idea. We are currently looking for a good starter tree, and she is going to write her father a letter to bury under it. It is not a solution, but it is something real and peaceful she can hold on to. There probably will not be another update. I am realizing that trying to untangle her family's damage might only hurt our relationship. If I want a healthy marriage, I need to protect her peace more than I need to win a fight that was lost a long time ago. Update 3. I've taken time to process everything before writing this, because I wanted to be clear-headed and fair. This isn't just about a relationship ending, it's about recognizing how far I'd strayed from myself and what I allowed in the name of love, patience, and hope. After the engagement ended, she moved in with a friend from work. But by then, things had already been unraveling for a while. I had believed I was being supportive and compassionate, giving her time to grieve and space to share on her own terms. But the truth was, I was being emotionally manipulated. She pretended to want to reconcile with her brother after hearing about her father's death. At the time, it felt like a breakthrough. I thought she was softening, maybe healing, but that was just a performance to win sympathy and deflect hard questions. The more I learned, the clearer it became that she had no real interest in reconnecting, only in looking like the victim. What's hard to admit is how many times she manipulated me subtly, shaping narratives and using silence or emotional withdrawal to make me prioritize her even over lifelong friends and family. I now see how isolated I became. One friend I reconnected with after everything joked, "You didn't date her, you ran her PR campaign." It hit harder than I expected, because in some ways, it felt true. There were moments where I wasn't just supporting her, I was constantly explaining basic respect, empathy, and how to show up in a relationship. It started to feel less like a partnership and more like I was trying to teach someone how to be a decent person. That kind of emotional labor takes a toll, and looking back, I can see how much of myself I lost in the process. I had reached out to her brother initially to confront him, but his response was surprisingly calm and cryptic even. After the breakup, I spoke to him again, and this time he told me the truth. The family had cut her off because of repeated abusive outbursts not just toward her father, but also toward her stepmother and brother. He said I wouldn't have seen it because she saved that side of herself for them. He even brought her father's old phone. The texts between her and her dad were awful, cruel, manipulative, and downright abusive. Honestly, I don't even know how or why her dad stayed in contact with her after receiving the things she wrote. If my own child ever said those things to me, I would have cried and cut contact. No parent deserves that level of cruelty. After her father passed, she started lashing out at me too. That's when the pattern revealed itself. Ironically, she didn't even mind that I spoke to her brother until she found out I helped him with a scholarship site. And help is a stretch. I mentioned the Common App, something I always bring up when college comes up in conversation. It's not some special effort. I've told my own cousins the same thing. It's a single application site that makes you sound like you know your stuff and gets kids on track fast. If they apply through it, they're pretty much guaranteed to get into somewhere. She knew this. She had seen me do it with my family. But this time, she twisted it into a betrayal like I'd committed some criminal offense. She realized I had spoken to her brother because I showed her a Reddit post to help her understand where I was coming from. That's when everything shifted. Even then, I didn't end things immediately. I asked if we could slow down and delay the wedding. Instead of meeting me with honesty or reflection, she shut down and turned hostile. Maybe it was her way of pushing me away, but if so, it worked. After the breakup, she kept reaching out, apologizing, saying she'd get help. But I had already asked her to consider therapy earlier in our relationship, and she refused every time. Now that everything has come to light, I can't see myself marrying her, much less raising a child with someone who hides so much, lashes out when cornered, and only offers change when everything is already broken. My family has been nothing but supportive through all of this. Update 4. Shortly after my last post, something unexpected happened. Her half-brother reached out to me first. And not just a snarky message or some legal update. He called me. The conversation started awkward. A weird, tense silence with some background noise, like he'd chickened out twice before hitting call. But once he started talking, all the family posturing was gone. He sounded, honestly, like a lonely kid. A lonely, angry, hurting kid. He told me that after he and I spoke, he tried emailing my ex a few more times, copying her on updates about some minor stuff, bank paperwork, a couple memorial details, and even a picture of her dad's old watch, just in case she wanted it. She never answered. He said he'd kind of given up, but then he admitted he'd read the last Reddit update. Someone in the family had sent it to him. Honestly, not surprised. At first, he was pissed that I wrote about their messages, but then he said he felt almost relieved that someone else saw that side of her. Like maybe for the first time, he could admit to someone who wasn't in the family that things were never really normal. He filled me in on his own therapy journey. Turns out, he started last year when he realized he might actually be grieving two parents, the one he had and the one he wished his dad could be. He told me more stories, nothing damning, but small, sad family messes, how the split families thing broke him more than anyone realized, how my ex used to ignore him in public and at every joint family thing, how his mom, the stepmom, just clammed up, never knowing how to deal. He didn't excuse her, but he painted a much less villainous portrait than I'd worked up in my head. She was just surviving, he said. But not exactly winning parent of the year. Finally, he admitted he didn't have the energy to pursue a relationship with my ex anymore, legal or otherwise. He wanted me to know he wasn't going to contest anything, fight over keepsakes, or play rightful heir. He just asked for honesty if she ever did want anything, or at least, no more games and lies. I agreed, and that was it. The angriest person in all this, finally, was letting go too. And then, right as I was digesting this, my own life blew up for a second time. My ex showed up at my door. Bags under her eyes, pale, like she'd slept in her car. She wasn't crying, but she looked broken. I never thought I'd see her that lost. She apologized, sort of. She said she was sorry for everything that happened, but not for what she'd done, not exactly. I'm sorry I wasn't who you needed me to be. I'm sorry I let everyone down. I'm sorry I kept hurting people, probably you the most. She didn't ask for another chance. She just said, I want you to know I'm getting help. For real this time. She asked for her dad's watch, if her brother was still offering. She didn't want to see him in person. Someday, maybe, she said, and her voice shook. I gave her the watch, in its box, and she held it to her chest like it was a ticket out. She left without looking back. That was more closure than I'd hoped for. Meanwhile, things with my own family were, honestly, a bit weird at first. A couple of my friends and my younger sister admitted they'd been worried about me for a year. You stopped laughing, my sister said. Even your texts sounded scared. That hurt, but she was right. I started therapy myself. My therapist, a miracle worker, helped me realize not just how much I'd lost in this relationship, but how much I'd learned. Turns out, when you teach yourself to fix broken things in others, you forget you're allowed to want easy, not just give it time and it will get better. My life started feeling like mine again. I started sleeping through the night for the first time in ages. Then, the most bizarre twist, I got a letter in the mail, addressed to me but with my ex's handwriting. Inside, there were two things: a sheet of paper with a short note, "Thank you for being better to me than I ever was to you. Please take care of yourself." The second item was a scan of a handwritten note from her father to her, dated when she was 15. It said, "You are loved. No matter everything, always." There were scratch marks, where her dad had started to write "no matter if we fight" and scribbled it out. Underneath he just repeated, "Always." I sat with that a long time. I realized I'd spent so much time trying to find the why, to decide whether she deserved empathy or anger, her family deserved blame or sympathy, that I'd lost sight of how sometimes, in grief and in love, family divides never heal, they just get passed on to the next generation, and you have to decide if you want to carry them any further. It's been 3 months since that last stormy visit. I haven't seen or heard from her since except for that letter. According to a mutual friend, she's seeing a therapist every week. Her brother messaged me one last time after the watch made it back to her safely. He's moving away for college in the fall. He says he hopes one day he'll have a family that feels less like a time bomb. As for me, I finished planting the memorial tree. I wrote my own letter to bury there, not just for her dad, but for the version of myself who thought every hurt could be solved if I was just patient enough. I finally let that go too. Update 5. It started the first weekend in May, when I stopped by the grave with a fresh clipping from the memorial tree. The soil was disturbed, recent, not just from the rain. There was a tiny origami crane tucked inside a plastic bag, sitting right on the headstone. I didn't recognize the writing on the attached note. The handwriting wasn't my ex's or her brother's. After a few minutes, I decided to text her, not expecting a reply. To my surprise, she messaged right back, "That wasn't me. I haven't been back since I picked up the watch." So, a small mystery, but I let it go. The next week, I heard from her brother again. Only this time it was a group text, with both me and my ex. He sounded different. Lighter, almost. "Quick update," he wrote, "I got into my top school and I'm moving next month. Would be nice to hear from both of you, even just a congratulations." I expected silence, but she replied in under 15 minutes, "Congrats, really. Proud of you." For once, it felt genuine. No drama, just acceptance. 3 days later, a second group message: "Mom is selling the house. Found some old photos of Dad, boxes labeled with both your names. Want me to send them? If not, I'm tossing." My ex didn't respond for a day. Then, "Keep them. Send me a few, if you want." He sent 2 pictures, one faded, from a cheap point and shoot. A rare shot of my ex, her brother, and their dad sitting in a booth at some abandoned chain restaurant birthday. No one is smiling. They look awkward and startled, as if someone's just asked them to pose together and the idea seems foreign. I stared at that picture longer than I thought I would. Then, out of nowhere, a second letter, this time not from my ex, but from her stepmother. She wrote like someone's much older aunt, stilted but determined, with a strange dignity. She apologized, not for anything specific, but for the unkind gaps and the silences, and for not reaching out after her husband's death. She thanked me for trying to untangle things nobody else was willing to face. The closing line was what caught me: "If my boy ever wants to meet his sister again, I hope you'll encourage it." I was never good at bringing them together. For that, I'm sorry. It was the first time I'd heard real regret from any adult in that family. For a day, I carried the letter around, wondering if I should send it to my ex or let her keep her peace. In the end, I texted her. She actually called, her voice steadier than I remembered. "She shouldn't blame herself so much," my ex said quietly. "I know I wasn't easy. I don't forgive everything, but I get it." We ended up talking for an hour and a half. Not just about her dad, or the fighting, or who started blocking whom first. Just about life. About how weird it is to look back and realize you barely understood the plot you were living in. She told me she misses her brothers sometimes, misses her dad always, and is making peace with neither feeling being neat or good. She's genuinely in therapy. She cracked a joke about finally mastering the trauma talk without crying. We laughed together, for the first time in probably a year. A week after that, she sent a picture, the memorial tree, in bloom for the first time. Thank you for this, read the caption. It feels like something good made out of everything lost. And finally, strangest of all, a few days ago, I received another envelope in the mail. No return address, but inside were 3 origami cranes. One blue, one green, one pale orange. On the last one, in the smallest, most careful script, was written, just trying to fold something beautiful out of scraps. No signature. I think I know who it was. And I think I prefer not to ask. As for me, I've started dating again, carefully and quietly, trying to notice every moment when happiness feels weightless rather than like the end of a long negotiation. My family, once hesitant and protective, now seem intent on pulling me out of my shell. My sister drags me to movie nights, and I've rejoined my old amateur soccer team. Everyone says I seem lighter, more direct, more willing to say what I mean. Sometimes I still dream about that family, their haunted house of silence and good intentions gone sideways. Sometimes I see my ex's face in a crowd and have to remind myself we're different people now, better, maybe, or at least different. The tree keeps growing. The letters are buried beneath it now, roots tangling around secrets and forgiveness, old pain and new hope. Every year, I expect it to get easier. But maybe what I've figured out is that it never becomes easy. You just plant what you can, where you can, and let it grow. I don't think there's more to add, not unless grief throws another curveball, though, honestly, I almost want it to remain at peace. But if you take anything from this, family breaks, family reforms, and sometimes letting go completely is the only way to really heal. Loving someone broken doesn't mean you have to break yourself to match. Sometimes, you just help plant a tree and watch what happens next. Update 6. I honestly thought the story was over. The weight in my chest had settled into something dull and manageable, my life ticking into new, steadier grooves. Until, 2 Saturdays ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I picked up, I was greeted by a man's voice, soft but cautious, just the way every single conversation used to feel with my ex. Hey, is this my name? This is. Sorry, you probably don't know me, but I'm Mark, I knew, ex's dad. I was his lawyer. He asked me to reach out if there were ever any issues about his letters or the grave. I haven't thought about the legal stuff in months. But it turns out, the grave, her dad's, had been quietly vandalized. It was nothing overtly cruel, just someone scraping the dates off the stone with a rock, as if to erase the after. The caretaker said it happened late at night, twice, with only a handful of clues, a sequence of small, folded cranes left around the plot, more than we'd ever seen before. The cemetery called Mark because my name was listed in a secondary contact file, beneath both kids. That call yanked me back into all kinds of guilt and worry. I texted my ex, not knowing if I'd be met with hostility, gratitude, or nothing at all, but she called back almost immediately. Listening to her, I realized how much her tone had shifted in the last couple months, steadier, heavier, but no longer that raw, defensive brittleness that used to scare me. It's not me, she said, and not my brother. But I think I know who it is. She explained, one of her cousins, the same one who'd originally posted about the funeral on Facebook, had reached out a few weeks before, apologizing for her role in the silence. Most of her messages had been stilted, weirdly formal, but 2 lines stood out: some grief comes out sideways, some just leaks forever. The cousin confessed to making a few late-night runs to the grave in a haze of anger and regret, folding cranes as an apology for never speaking up when the family split grew toxic. She'd tried to scratch the dates off in a sort of backward magic, convinced if they weren't carved, then maybe her uncle hadn't really left. The origami was guilt and hope, both. My ex took a few days to process it, calling each time with some new bit of family lore I'd never heard, tiny admissions of the secrets people keep just to survive another year of awkward holidays. She sounded like someone who'd swung around the sharp point of blame and somehow landed in gentleness. I don't hate her, she told me. I think we all just got weird, and scared, and then it was too late. I offered to help buffer the whole thing with the cemetery. She surprised me by accepting gratefully, not with the stubborn, prideful independence of the past. I called Mark back, explained, and got a message the next morning that it was all settled. No police, just a note in the records, a quiet warning. But the new angle to all this was what came next. The cousin, Sam, reached out to me directly. Her email was an essay, part confession, part heartbreak, how the adults passed down silence like inheritance, how the kids all learned shame before they learned how to speak up. The family, she said, had started attending informal grief breakfasts, half support group, half family therapy, where the absence of secrecy was the attendance fee. For the first time, she and my ex's brother had sat down and actually talked about their dad, not as martyr or villain, just as a person with too many responsibilities. The group had an extra, empty seat. We keep it open for my ex, if she ever wants to talk sense or nonsense, or just eat pancakes. I passed the invitation along without any expectation, But a week later my ex texted, "Maybe it's time. Maybe I'll go." Meanwhile, out of the blue, her brother sent me a blurry selfie. He's grown so much just in the last few months, out from under the family shadow. Orientation, the caption read. I told someone, I have a sister. That counts, right? On the day of the first breakfast, my ex called again, not from her car or the old apartment, but from a sunny bench just outside a cafe. Her voice was different still, there was fear, but hope, too. I went in. I stayed. I listened. We even laughed, about stupid family stories and the time Dad glued the newel post to the carpet. I don't forgive them for everything. But I think I can love the pieces I didn't throw away. I honestly teared up on the sidewalk right then. It hit me that the family wasn't just healing itself behind closed doors, they were learning, haltingly, that the plot can shift even if the script was a tragedy for a long, long time. A week later, in the mail, one more envelope, this time with no cranes, no notes, just a 4x6 can of a table, 4 people around it, sunlit and awkward, grinning with that post-cry, post-laughter relief of people testing out a new story for themselves. My ex is there, eyes red, but smiling. Her brother is next to her, hand hovering above a pile of napkins folded into airplanes instead of cranes. The cousin, Sam, sits opposite, one hand raised in a peace sign. The fourth chair is empty, but you can just make out a swath of sunlight where no one sits. Beneath, scrawled simply, sometimes, family is practice. Thanks for giving us a second rehearsal. I realized then, every year, life was going to twist out another surprise, another ache, another bloom. The family tree, the real one in my yard, is growing despite everything, despite all our mistakes and missed chances. Roots, letters, apologies. Sometimes forgiveness is not about a perfect ending, or even a neat one, but just about showing up, folding your regrets into something you can finally hand to someone else, and eating pancakes in sunlit rooms with people you're just learning to love again. Update 7. This update begins, unexpectedly, not with a call or a package, but with a knock at my door at 8 a.m. on a humid Saturday in late June. I opened it in my boxers, unprepared for a visitor, especially not for Sam, the cousin, the crane folder, the one whose guilt had scratched at a tombstone. She looked sheepish, holding a cardboard box in both hands, blinking through hair that hung like a rain curtain. "Can I come in?" she said, and at my blank expression, added, "Don't worry, this isn't an ambush. My lease is up. I'm crashing with friends. I found this in Grandma's garage and figured you'd know if anyone wants it." She handed me the box and left, almost running down the steps, like the longer she stayed the more fragile her resolve. I closed the door and stared. The box rattled with books, yellow-paged diaries, and, on top, an honest-to-God camcorder, the kind that spits out VHS tapes like relics from a lost age. Inside the flap was a note, for my ex, and her brother. "And you, if you want. Please decide what to do with these." My first thought was, weird. My second was, I should call them, but I didn't, not right away. Instead, I spent the morning paging through the box, making a sort of archaeological dig out of forgotten grief. The camcorder tapes were labeled only with dates, June 97, May 03, August 09. There was a worn spiral notebook filled in 2 sets of handwriting, her dad's blocky script, and what I guessed must be the brothers, years later, copying things he wanted to remember, song lyrics, dad jokes, scribbled phone numbers. Tucked between pages, like accidental bookmarks, were family photos, Polaroids fading into oversaturated ghosts, one of my ex and her brother on a playground somewhere in autumn, wearing matching frog hats. They couldn't have been more than 8 and 4. I texted my ex, something careful. Sam dropped a box. "Your dad's tapes, journals. Want to handle this together?" She surprised me by answering, "Yes." Just that, no hesitation, no explanation. We met at my place 2 days later, both of us oddly formal, like business partners at a bankruptcy hearing. She brought her brother. It was the first time the 3 of us had sat together. He was taller than I remembered, lean in the way only teenagers surviving on fluorescent cafeteria pizza become. I gave them the box and waited. Maybe I expected an outpouring of emotion, a grand movie moment. But it was quieter. My ex and her brother sorted through the box in silence, sometimes offering a photo for the other to see, sometimes smiling faintly at a doodle or stray insult scribbled in the margins. "You both have monkey feet." In bright green marker. The camcorder was dead, and, for a surreal half hour, we found ourselves driving to 3 thrift stores looking for a compatible charger like a team of sentimental Ghostbusters. Finally, back at my place, we hooked it up to an ancient TV monitor set I keep for retro gaming. The images flickered, my ex at a birthday she'd long forgotten, the cake lopsided, her dad's voice off camera teasing her about turning double digits. Her brother at a science fair, holding up a solar system made of painted dryer balls and wire hangers, their dad's laughter in the background, warm and proud. But it was the last tape, marked simply Dad, that cracked something open. On it, their father, grayer and slower, a few years before he passed, sat on a lawn chair and talked to the camera for nearly 20 minutes. It was part monologue, part confession. "Family is a messy thing," he said, squinting into the sun. "I hope you both know, The line between loving and failing isn't as clear as people think. If you're watching this, I probably screwed up more than I ever meant to. But being your dad was the best messy thing I ever did. He paused, smiling crookedly, and added, and if you ever stop talking to each other, I hope you remember, nobody in this family gets to escape. Not really. Someone always finds you with a frog hat or bad singing or something. We watched the tape to the end. All three of us were crying, which is honestly the most honest thing any of us had done together. My ex's brother was the first to speak, voice cracking. I forgave him, 2 years ago. I just never told anyone. Later, over takeout eaten out of the cartons because it felt wrong to break the silence with silverware, my ex looked up. I want to try the breakfast thing again. With Sam. With all of us. And I want to tell Grandma. Everything. About Dad. About us. All the things we've all been pretending didn't happen, or hoping someone else would fix. We made a plan, awkward, tentative, imperfect. But it was real. The next weekend, there were 7 of us at grief breakfast. My ex, her brother, Sam, their grandmother, silent and teary, and 3 other cousins I barely knew, drawn in by rumor and maybe the strange gravity of honesty. We watched the camcorder tape on the TV, sunlight spearing through the blinds, old jokes echoing against faded wallpaper. Halfway through, Grandma, who had been clutching my ex's hand so hard it turned white, began to talk, quietly but stubbornly, about her own father, and how he once missed her birthday for reasons he thought I'd understand someday. By the end, it was less a group therapy session and more a surrender, everyone admitting they had no idea how to be a good family, but wanted to start learning. Afterwards, my ex and I stepped outside. She was the calmest I'd ever seen her, tired, but lighter, like a runner after the finish. I used to think the story had to be about who was right and who was wrong, she said. Now I think it's just about who keeps showing up, even after it gets so ugly you don't want to look at it anymore. She asked if she could take the frog hat Polaroid for her new apartment. I said yes, of course. A couple days later, her brother emailed me. He'd sent a digitized version of the camcorder tape to everyone in the family, along with an open invitation. Next time, brunch is on me. No pancakes required. In my mind, I keep coming back to one line from their dad on the tape. Someone always finds you. I think about how grief mangles everything, how love never really dies. As cliché as it sounds, it expands, warps, changes shape, but it doesn't vanish. Sometimes it just takes the form of a broken camcorder and a second-hand frog hat. The tree in my yard is taller, now. My own family, out of curiosity or maybe kindness, asked if they could help plant another tree, this one for all the weirdos who kept loving each other when they didn't know how. Life is not neat, but maybe that's the only thing that makes it worth living, the raw, tangled roots, and the mess that persists, stubbornly, into something that almost looks like hope.